All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson proof feminist why feminism was a mistake. Jump in.
When you're talking about Marxist feminism specifically, you would have to kind of hate first wave feminism because it did
In
more.
a lot of notions, I do, because I do think it ignored the material conditions of poor women, women of color. So, yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay.
Just, I'm sure you support capitalism, right? Do you like social democracy?
Well, I'm not sure that that's contingent on capitalism.
That is a capitalist mode, just like a laissez-faire free market would be. There's different ways that capitalism can be structured, and you can agree with one.
Yeah, but capitalism is an economic system. It's not as
Sure,
much
I'm
of a
just showing
political
how an
theory as Marxism.
idea. I'm just showing how an idea can have different theory behind it.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. I'm talking about the prominence of the ideas themselves.
Sure, I guess if I must not have understood. No,
Yeah.
I don't agree with some of the modes that liberal feminism or first wave feminism, as you've called it, have used.
So then wouldn't you agree with me then that it actually would have been more liberating for women to not have participated in first wave feminism but instead relied on their husbands? Wouldn't that have actually been more liberating than sacrificing them to the sacrificial lamb of capitalism?
Which is worse? I don't know. There's just so many metrics that you can evaluate.
Well, this is the metric we're evaluating. So the metric we're evaluating is, my argument is, if women are dependent on their husbands and accrue no debt, only the husband can accrue debt, but women can still own assets, which they could. And they could still own property, which they could, even if they were married.
Right, but you're
they
forcing
could.
a woman to link arms with a man. So if she's single, does she have access
As
to these
opposed
things?
to
If she's a
forcing her to go to
lesbian,
work.
does she have these things?
Yeah, they still, yes, of course.
How would you have these things?
How would they not have them? They were able to own property even unmarried. That's always been the history of the United States.
Right, but obviously then you would need to be in the workforce, correct? Because you need to purchase it?
No, you wouldn't need to purchase it. Oftentimes your father would give it to you.
Oh, so just through, again, like generational wealth.
Yeah. Which, by the way, first wave feminism destroyed a lot of that too. A lot of cross-generational wealth. But women could own property.
Sure. I mean, I would say, like, why would I have to pick one?
Because your choice is either you go to work, right? You either want equality or you don't want equality. So if the idea is I want equality, and that's what
I think it would be more beneficial for women not to be dependent on men and to have more liberty.
to work with
That is an insane statement, man. It make no sense at all. You don't want to be dependent on men. Who's going to defend your country? Women is going to defend you? Really? Even I'm just taking that a broad sample, but that's the most. I mean, you want women to be the police, right? You don't want to depend on, like, these are insane takes, guys. Because they're not based on reality. These are just based on concepts. Thinking from the premise that men and women are the same, but they're not.
the capitalist system.
Yes.
Why?
Because they would have more control, autonomy, and identity.
They don't seem to have more control over either of or any of those things. Example, the identity of woman now in modernity is in question, period.
What do you mean?
What is a woman?
Oh, we're going there now.
Well, you just said women would have more identity.
Yeah,
Because-
good point.
Identity
More
in
autonomy.
terms of
But
if
it-
you're going to be dependent on a husband, then your labor is predetermined for you. Your identity in terms of being a wife and mother is predetermined for you.
Yeah, but the beneficiaries of that is that your accruement of debt is also non-existent, and so you can never
It's
be a
not
slave
really
to
non-existent because
capitalism.
your husband has it as well. So I mean, there is still
But there's no debt on you directly.
capitalistic threat.
You were not ever
and you don't
responsible
have-
for your husband's debt.
But you still suffer the outcomes if it doesn't work out, right?
Yeah, but you suffer the outcomes of that now under
right, but
capitalism.
you would have more control and autonomy, right?
You don't
know,
seem
it's
to
either
have-
You
like
don't, you don't seem like you guys cannot handle debt.
You're
I
the
don't
captain
see
of
how
your own
women
sinking ship, or you're just kind of
I
a
don't-
passenger on the Titanic.
Like, you use these words, these kind of buzzwords, right? You say they have more autonomy.
Yeah.
How do women have more autonomy?
Self-determination through choice.
What choices? Which ones?
Essentially, how they want to experience their life. Do they want to get married? Do they want to have children?
They had the option to do that before. They didn't have to get married. Most of the time, women who didn't get married stayed at home with their parents. By the way, right now, most women who don't get married, they often stay at home with their parents. Not a lot has changed in that department.
I mean, I haven't read any statistics that women who don't get married
But
just
I
stay
think
home with
this
their
comes down to the elimination of patriarchy.
parents.
Yes, it's often the case that women who do
Is that
not
true
get
with men?
married
Yep.
stay at home with their parents. Yeah,
Because
it's often true with men too. And it was often true with men then.
I think single women home purchases are starting to outpace men.
It's true.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But they cannot keep they cannot keep their houses. They have to sell their houses. They have to sell their houses.
But it
So
is
it
often
seems that
the
they're
case.
getting their own. They're getting their own house.
Sometimes.
Not staying.
Sometimes, but you got to remember now, children are staying at home with their parents longer than
Sure. So
ever.
obviously, like the conditions that comes to capitalism now is different than it was, in the 1900s.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is that I don't see how women actually have any more of these things. I don't see how they have any more autonomy. I don't see how they have any more actual choice. It just seems like an illusion of choice.
I would agree with you. There is some oppression within that choice, but I do think the choice is more.
Oh.
Okay, and it's
Andrew says illusion. And she said she changed the word illusion to oppression. See, this is where I think Andrew's very good with this. He understands where she's coming from because the Marxists and the communists are very good at language. Very good. That's why the right has failed the culture war for the last 20 years. They allowed the lefties just to change the entire, almost not entire, but most of the common English language. They, there, they, them. It's a plural word, but they use it to identify single as pronouns. Like these people, the right has failed to even protect the definition of what is a woman. Because they're still in this position of defensive and the defense. Instead of just taking the bull by the horn and creating their own culture. And we're working on that.
worth it to have this limited amount of autonomy in order to grind yourself in a capitalist system. Like if you were to ask the average woman, if you were to go back in time, hypothetically, and you were to sit down with first wave feminists, okay, who couldn't seem to get first wave feminism passed any other way than an amendment because women were voting it down all over the place. The question becomes, if you ask them, if we fast forwarded this to 100 years, I just want to let you know that your children will be living at home with you until they're 25. You will have access to college, but you'll have crushing debt, and chances are your marriage is going to fail. Chances are really good that your marriage is going to fail, over 50% perhaps, that your marriage is going to fail. But you'll have a little tiny bit more autonomy, but I won't even be able to exactly tell you how you have more of it. Do you think that they would go for that deal? Or if you said, hang on, or if you said to them, if you don't do this, your husbands will accrue all debt. You'll never have to worry about it again, and you can still make moral claims, and they'll be super effective, just like the temperance movement was, because now you're not political pawns.
I mean, I think you're kind of constructing the options in a way that would be beneficial to a specific narrative. I think I have cleared how you have autonomy. Like, would you want men to be dependent on women and have women be the predominant mode of production under capitalism?
I don't think it's possible.
But would you want that?
Well, I couldn't want a thing I don't think is possible.
Why?
Good point. Good catch. Good catch. She was saying that, and I was like, man, that makes no sense. Good catch, Jack.
Because it's not possible.
Well, I mean, why is it not possible?
It's not possible because women are not capable of doing the same types of things that men are capable of doing.
Such as?
Inside of society, enforcement.
Enforcement?
Yep.
So like police and
Not military.
military?
Military, policing,
I don't think
special
men really are.
services.
I don't think men really are capable of that.
Now she's just debating of bad faith. At this point, this debate has nothing to do with reality. At this point, this is just semantic.
I mean, the men have gone and fought global wars time and time again and won.
Yeah, and what outcomes do they have?
Peace.
They win the war.
They suffer severe PSD. They have a hard time integrating into society. I mean, That doesn't seem like a natural
there's
condition for men to be subjected to.
There can be symptoms of violence, but remember, not everybody gets PTSD, even combat veterans. A lot of them don't have PTSD. Some get PTSD.
Right.
But not only that, that's a coping mechanism. It's going to be individualistic. Men are definitely capable of extreme.
But it is an outcome of being exposed
Only
to
for
extreme
some
violence.
people.
I could say that about women.
Yeah, you can, but the problem when it comes down to enforcement is that women can't do enforcement.
What do you mean?
So,
Oh, see, what do you mean? This is her second time saying it for the same argument. It's putting Andrew to the defense. But let me see how I
give
can
you
handle it.
the easy hypothetical.
Okay.
If all men tomorrow decide that women in the United States are slaves,
Yep.
are women in the United States slaves?
No.
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 Why wouldn't they be?
I think it would be
How could women stop it?
I mean, it would just depend essentially on like access to resources.
Yeah,
Oh my
men
God.
have the access to all the resources because they made you slaves.
Well, that's how women could like stop it.
Women couldn't
It would
stop it.
just be a fight over resources.
How come women can't stop it in Islamic nations then when they just go, okay, you're
Well,
all slaves?
obviously, within Islamic nations, they don't have access to specific resources.
Oh.
Nobody has access
Bro,
to
yeah, she think, hey, access to resources. She think that the supermarket, they just open and have resources right in the counter. They have just resources out of nowhere. They just have resources. And men are not going to do anything to stop it. Men can stop tomorrow and those supermarkets go broke. Lady. At this point, this is just a bad faith debate. She hasn't even explained how females can stop it. If men say, you know what, all you guys are going to be enslaved, they can't stop it, guys. They can't. They cannot simply stop it.
resources if men don't allow access to those resources? Nobody. Because men have a monopoly on force. That's feminist theory. Feminists understand, even Marxist feminists know this, that men have a monopoly on force. So, in other words, if men collectively...
Under patriarchy, I agree.
No, under any archy, they're going to need to have men as their monopoly on force. I'll give you an example. If tomorrow...
Hey, wait a second. Wait. Where were the women when the Ukrainian war started? Oh, right. Of searching the world for another man. Not only that, there was a lot of videos in Kiev of females just walking around in nightlife, you know, like nothing was happening. Man, I saw that video. I was so pissed. And I'm not in favor of the war, either side. But I can respect the men just fighting for it. The fact that females are just going through the street thinking nothing's happening, I will be pissed, man. I will be pissed.
men decided to enslave all women,
Yeah.
all women would be enslaved. However, if tomorrow all women decided to enslave all men, they do not have the force doctrine and requisite necessary to do so. They
Okay.
could not do it. They just couldn't do it physically.
Within any context.
No.
So if women had access to all the drones,
Nope.
if
Nope.
women had access to all the water supply,
repairs them
if
all?
women had access, sorry,
Nope.
We
if
repair
women
them
had
all.
access to, I mean, women can have the capacity to repair. I don't
They
understand.
could.
Like,
It's going to take you like a 1,000 years.
Okay, so here's what I would say. Let's do this experiment this way. If women had access to all of the firearms on Earth that exist, okay, and every weapon which exists, and they have access to all of that, they still don't have the requisite brute force that would be necessary to keep men under control. They just wouldn't. It wouldn't be possible to do long term.
what do you mean
Even
by
short term.
what do you mean like by brute force? That they just
Men
wouldn't be
are-
able to pull the trigger?
No, that men are much, much, much stronger, and that
Sure.
guns are only an equalizer until men take your guns.
Right, and obviously they would have to get close enough. But I mean,
They
I don't
can.
care how strong you are if you don't have water and food. What
Well,
are
it's
you gonna
really
do?
simple then. Do you think that if you were the head of a prison, would you rather have all male or all female guards? If you were dealing with dangerous prisoners, even if both had access to guns.
I mean, I guess it would depend what the goal is.
Hey, man, it's just that the
I
pen
think
word.
keep the
that-
prisoners
She's looking for an answer. She's saying the pen because she's looking for an answer.
Were dangerous under control.
I mean, I think women can make really great police officers because they are less likely to use excessive force. They're more likely to de-escalate, where men are more likely to escalate.
More likely to get disarmed, more likely to get beaten up, more likely to accidentally shoot a suspect. They're more likely to do all sorts of things to the contrary as well. But there's also way fewer females who are in the police force because they can't meet the minimum requirements, which are necessary to be a cop. They can't meet the necessary minimum physical requirements. Same thing in the military. They can't meet the necessary minimum physical requirements to be in the infantry. Most women can't do it.
Right.
So men have a monopoly on force, and because of force doctrine, this ends up coming down to this idea. If it is the case, you say that women can do anything that men can do, I counter this by saying they cannot. They cannot do enforcement. This is uniquely a male thing. There are some women who can be introduced, who can meet these standards, but on average they can't.
Well, I think if we're to kind of bring it to an analogy, if the fence is 6 feet tall and most women are 5'8", then yeah, of course they're not going to be able to meet that standard. So is the standard just specific to certain male criteria?
So then basically if we downgrade the criteria, to make it easier for females, they might pass it.
The criteria of you need to handle a male. So if you're a female police officer, you need to be able to handle a male, right?
Yeah, but obviously, you have tools to aid in that. That's what I'm saying. Just because women aren't meeting these criteria,
do you have
doesn't
to get
mean
close
that...
to a male when you're a police officer as a female in order to put handcuffs on them, stuff like that?
Yeah, but you have pepper spray and stun guns.
Yeah, and routinely women get disarmed and they're routinely overpowered by suspects.
All the time.
Routinely. Happens
New York
often.
City. I'm a firearm instructor who trains women. At least half of my students cannot load an automatic pistol without help. Women are never going to overtake men, even with guns.
And
sure, and men often use excessive force, and then they're sued.
Yeah,
and
maybe,
then people
but
die.
when you say men use excessive force, you're just demonstrating my point that men have a monopoly on force. Yes, maybe it's excessive, but they're capable of using it.
Use force, sure.
No. They're just better at using force because they're much stronger. They're much stronger. They have much denser bones, so they're much more capable.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so
the average
man, she's literally just typical feminist, man. Let me know what you guys think. And man, I don't know where to start here, guys. I really don't know what to start. I would love to hear Rachel Wilson against one of these witches. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next one.